I was quite interested when I heard this topic being thrown around, and I watched your interview with ABC7 that you had a while back about this song, Baby It's Cold Outside, and the message that it's conveyed. And I know they mentioned that you were the niece of the composer Frank Loesser, is that correct?
That's not exactly correct. So and by the way, they only got like half of the story, just
Right.
so you know. So, and subsequently, Frank Loesser's daughter has weighed in on this and, completely agrees with everything I said.
Mm-hmm.
My uncle was, so Frank Loesser's shows were produced by Fewer and Martin.
Mm-hmm.
They did How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, Guys and Dolls, Where's Charlie, and whatever else. Ernie Martin was my uncle.
Oh, okay.
So, and the funny thing, so I'll just say, like, the little heartwarming thing is that, interestingly enough, the Martin family, the Fewer family, and the Loesser family have all been talking for the first time in years because of this.
Really?
And it's because I did that interview with ABC that then turned into CBS, Fox, NBC, and you guys, everybody else. That, interestingly enough, I called my cousin, who's my Uncle Ernie's daughter.
Right.
But then I got a call from Cy Fewer's son, and then one of the Loessers called my cousin. So it's very funny. Like, we've all, they of course, I mean, I'm the niece, but the actual kids of the two producers and the composer, haven't talked to each other in at least a decade. And so just like a little Hallmark movie or, however you want to look at it, it has the heartwarming, happy ending of a Christmas story.
Right.
In a funny way. So that's sort of the backstory. But the part that's so important about this story, there are a couple pieces to it. One of them, let me just give you the interpretation of the song, and then I'll give you the backstory, which is so interesting.
Okay.
The song is not about a man forcing himself on a woman. It by no means was about that at all. This was more of a song that was somewhat empowering women, because in 1944, when it was written, and for a very long time before and after that, women were not allowed to be with men unchaperoned, and women really were not allowed socially to want to be alone with men. That was the wrong kind of woman. And so if you read the lyrics to this song, the lyrics are not the woman saying, no, 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 I want to leave, and the man saying, yes, yes, yes. Read the lyrics and read the woman's part. And by the way, it's sung woman to man and man to woman. The same lyrics are done by a woman pursuing a man and by a man pursuing a woman. But even taking that out of it, the person being pursued, if you listen to just his or her lyrics, it says, I ought to say no, no, no. At least I'm going to say that I tried. Because, and then it goes through all the many, many people who are going to gossip about her if she stays with him. And then the two of them collude, and they come up with excuses why they should be together. It's cold outside. There are no cabs. She drank too much. They come up with all these excuses because they're mutually attracted, and they are coming up with excuses together so that they can stay together because they want to be together. In a time when society looked down on people who did that. This song, written in 1944, used the African style of call and response very intentionally to create that song, and then was a song that was allowing a woman to want to be with a man. Because even though the song is about a woman making excuses, it is actually the song of a woman and a man saying that they mutually want to spend time together, and they want to find a way to get away from the criticism of society.
Right.
And that was true, by the way. The movies and the plays produced by my uncle and his partner and done with the music of Frank Loesser had that theme many times. So the idea that this, of all songs, by all composers, of all songs, the idea that Baby It's Cold Outside is being criticized and being portrayed as something that is about sexual harassment or date rape is, offensive and wrong. And, I get it. I get that people are sensitive, and I am too. And I get that people are worried about messages. But before jumping to conclusions, people should read all the words, not just some of the words. And they should know the history before they make up a history.
I know there's a part in one of the lyrics where the woman says, "What's in this drink?"
So that's right. That's what got everybody started, apparently. But that's not. So this is 1944. There was
Right.
nothing put in her drink. Even when I was a kid, people would laugh and say, "Oh my God, what's in this drink? It's going to my head." What it means is that there were people drinking cocktails and they didn't realize that the cocktail was so strong and they're starting to get drunk. So the whole point is that as he's saying, "Baby, it's cold outside, you shouldn't go out," and "Oh, there are no cabs," she's also saying, "Oh, what's in this drink? I'm feeling a little tipsy. I should not leave because I'm drunk," right? They're coming up with excuses.
Right.
It is not about date rape. And if you look at the interview that Susan Loesser, Frank Loesser's daughter, gave, she blames Bill Cosby for ruining Christmas, essentially.
Oh,
She
really?
said if it weren't for the Bill Cosby case, nobody would have thought twice about that lyric. So, by the way, let me tell you also, because this is the part that I love, just so you know. But I was called by ABC a week ago saying, "Can you comment?" Because my area of expertise is social media and psychology, and they wanted to talk about how a Cleveland radio station pulled the song because it was about date rape, right?
Right.
And what could I say about it? And so I gave them what they wanted, which was a comment about how things spread in social media without, they spread because they're exciting and they involve, maybe an iconoclastic thing or using symbolism to promote an idea, whatever it was that they were asking about. But then I said, by the way, I'm actually really upset about this because my great uncle was involved, was really the he and his partner really were the people who brought Frank Loesser music to the world, right? By producing his shows. And I said, but I happen to know the actual story of this song. And I told them the story, and I actually told them the story, and then they said, "How do you know that?" And I told them about my uncle. Okay, but here's the story of how the song was written. The song was written by Frank Loesser for himself and his wife. Okay, it was not written for the public. And so in 1944, in the 40s, and before the 40s, and in the 50s and 60s, and probably even into the 70s, a lot of what people did to entertain themselves and each other was they had dinner parties. And the Loessers were part of, obviously, the, artistic, musical, social groups that would get together and have dinner parties with each other. So it was very common all over the country to have dinner parties, but in particular in Hollywood and in New York, Hollywood and Broadway, very talented people would get together and they would have dinner parties and they would perform for each other. So there was a very, very famous party out here once a week. Gene Kelly gave a party and Judy Garland would sing and Irving Berlin would play the piano, whatever it was. And in New York, it was my uncle and his partner, so Fewer and Martin, and Cole Porter would be playing their piano and Frank Loesser would be there. And, these people would come together. So back in the day when dinner parties were the form of entertainment, the Loessers decided that it was awkward to leave a party. And so Frank Loesser wrote a song, and the song was a little routine that he and his wife would do to say goodbye and that they were leaving the party. And that song was "Baby, It's Cold Outside."
Oh, okay.
And people loved it. And so every time the Loessers were at a party, word got out about this little routine that they did, and no one would leave the party until the Loessers sang their song, because it wasn't recorded, it wasn't on the radio, it wasn't in a movie, you couldn't buy it. The only place you could ever hear the song was if you happened to be at a party with Frank Loesser and his wife, and then you knew for sure that they would sing it because that's how they left parties. So it became the announcement that the party was over and it was time for everybody to go home. And after 5 years of singing this, in 1949, they sold the song, or he sold the song, and put it in the movie Neptune's Daughter, and it ended up winning the Oscar for Best Song. But his wife really never forgave him for selling their song. That was their song, not a song for the world. And so it was their song. It was not a song about date rape. It was a song written by and for a married couple who were in love with each other, but pretending like it was their first sort of, time together. And so the whole interpretation of this song is wrong, not only because of how it originated by, Frank Loesser and his wife for their own private use, but also not even for the interpretation, because if you actually read all the lyrics, it's empowering people to stay together rather than to be forced by the social norms to separate because people might gossip about them. So for those of us in my extended family and the extended family of Frank Loesser and the extended family of Cy Feuer, and probably other families who are also related to the origins of these artists. We're all sort of heartbroken that anybody would even, perceive the song to be a date rape song or a song of sexual harassment, because by no means was it ever that, nor was it ever meant to even allude to that. And by the way, no matter what happens with this song, people will still play hard to get, and they will still be ambivalent on first or second dates. And so this is, it's also portraying a part of romance that is just a part of being human.
Right.
But it's not. But again, please include this concept though. People should read all the lyrics, because it's not a woman saying no. The lyrics are a woman saying, "I ought to say no. At least I'm going to say that I tried to say no, because look at the list of all the people who are going to gossip about me if they find out that I stayed here."
And what do you think your uncle Ernie Martin would think today about this debate?
People have asked that, and it's funny because I took a different approach than Susan Loesser did. I thought that he would be sort of heartbroken by this misinterpretation, because he and his partner and his, friends, his artist friends, they wanted to bring joy to, to everybody, and they wanted people to celebrate relationships, and they wanted people to enjoy that part of it. The idea that anything that he did would be interpreted as somebody being a predator would be sort of heartbreaking, as would the idea that anybody would take the Loesser's song For Each Other, their private song, and interpret it as something, wrong and, evil. The difference, it's funny, because if you look at the interviews with Susan Loesser, she said that her father would be furious that this happened and that it's just wrong. Which is, and yet we all understand why people do this, and we all have kids. And, and I know that my cousin and I both have daughters. I have a son also, but we look at this and we get it. Like, we get that people look at this and they say, oh, what's in this drink? Or, somebody saying no and somebody saying yes. And we don't want our daughters to grow up and their daughters. We don't want people to grow up thinking that it's okay to try to force yourself on somebody. But that's not what the song is about, and we're sort of hoping that people clear the air and explain it. And perhaps, this is a lesson that people should slow down and listen to the whole story before they jump to conclusions. Sometimes when we're trying to make a point, we look for the best metaphor or the best symbol in order to make our point strong and to make it, really easy for people to understand, and to make a point in a way that resonates with people. And so you take something that everybody loves, like Baby It's Cold Outside or Charlie Brown, and you try to say, look how horrible this is because it promotes something ill in the world. But and it's great because it does call attention to a problem. But at the same time, I just wish people would be accurate in finding the best symbol. And I also think that people need to slow down and think about the history of things before they take something from the past and put it in an analysis based on today's standards.